and deep condolences for the lives lost in Aru Junction because of the attacks that occurred 3 days ago, and which has taken many lives, and also it has led to loss of properties, fighting among our communities from the pastoralist and the host communities in eastern Equatoria. This is very unfortunate, and this has been occurring all over the country. Community conflicts either resulting from cattle rustling or from conflict between the cattle herders and farming communities is an endemic crisis, and it is actually one of the issues we are discussing in the Tumaini initiative, how to end it. The main root cause of this is failure of the government. The government we have is dysfunctional. It is incapable of carrying out its main task, which is to protect lives and properties of the citizens. As you can see in Aru Junction and other places, our citizens are made to fight, to kill themselves without any intervention of the state or the government, and the government is allowing them to do that. The communities are armed to the teeth, and there is nothing that the government can do about it. This is very unfortunate. This shows the level our state has reached to. It is a state of total state failure.
What's the position of UPA? Because I saw you releasing a statement about this event, and how can this issue of communal violence be addressed once and for all? And what's the position or the idea of UPA in general about this?
The UPA, as a opposition, we have actually proposed a need for a complete protocol, which we have discussed, negotiated with the government delegation. I must say the previous government delegation, before they were unceremonially removed and changed, and we have reached a compromise on a protocol on communal conflict and land disputes in South Sudan. And we have discussed the root cause of this communal conflict, and we have pointed out very clearly what is wrong, why is this happening in South Sudan. And one aspect is a state failure to carry out its function. One of the, maybe the number one function of a state is to protect lives and properties of the citizen before you even provide development, and then to maintain rule of law, and on that maintain security, law and order within the country, apart from protecting the country from any external aggression. This is the number one and core function of the state. Our government is not able to carry out this. And to make things worse, actors in the government are arming their communities, and it is on both sides of the conflict always. Our communities are armed to go and fight themselves. And of course, in the beginning, it is they are arming to protect themselves, because there is no state, there is no government that can protect them. But then this also develops into aggression to the other communities, because they take the law into their own hands. So the issue of a spread of firearms in the hands of civilian population. At the same time, the process of building a national army and the process of building law enforcement agencies like the police to maintain law and order and to protect the citizens and to intervene in case of conflict. This is being deliberately obstructed by those in the government. And this is part of the power struggle that is continuing, even if when they sign peace agreement. And this result into these conflicts, communal conflicts, and create instability in the countryside and has very severe consequences on the economy, on the lives of the people. Because like now, the subsistent farming, which has been the mainstay providing food security for our people, has collapsed because of this communal conflict and insecurity in the countryside, forcing our people to get displaced into towns or to leave the country into refugee camps. As we speak, the numbers of South Sudanese moving into refuge in the neighboring countries are increasing. Despite the so-called RRCs being signed and being extended several times without providing or realizing peace in the country.
Now, what solutions are there in the protocol of the Tumaini when it comes to the communal conflict? I mean, what difference will it really make compared to the revitalized peace agreement?
Quite a lot, actually. First of all, the revitalized peace agreement did not address these issues specifically with a specific chapter or a protocol. We are providing a protocol in the Tumaini consensus, having learned from the lessons from failure of implementation of RRCs and other agreements. That's one. Number two, the solutions are ranging from rebuilding the state, including the security sector, and strengthening law enforcement agencies, establishing rule of law in the country, establishing a responsive government to the needs of the people. This is one aspect. The other aspects involve the need for the state to have the monopoly of use of force within the country, and which is the basis of maintaining law and order within the country and implementing the principle of rule of law, so that nobody takes the law into their hands. And this will also need an exercise of disarmament. Having built the law enforcement agencies, we then carry out disarmament of the citizens so that the police and the state would be the one responsible to protect lives and properties of the citizen, and not the citizen taking the law into their own hands.
Right. Now, General Pangan, let's talk about Tumaini and what are we expecting today. I understand last week there was a presentation about the root causes of the conflict after the parties agreed to shelve the agenda number 1, which was actually the clarity on the names of the parties and so forth. So, can you summarize to us the presentation of UPA last week about the root causes of the conflict? Because many people are saying everyone knows the root cause of the conflict, so why making it like as an agenda in this discussion or negotiation here? On
your first aspect of your question, what are we expecting? from the Tumaini negotiations. First, we were expecting, when the government decided to change its delegation, we were expecting the government to come back for us to finalize the only remaining protocol, which is the protocol on responsibility sharing, and to recommit themselves to the 8 protocols for us to proceed to the signing of the Tumaini consensus. That is what we were expecting. That is what the people of South Sudan were expecting. That is what the mediators were expecting. That is what the region and the international community was expecting. To the disappointment of the people of South Sudan, the opposition, the mediation, the government reneged on the agreement that we have negotiated with them. They have disowned the 8 protocols, and they have come with a totally new position, forcing the mediation and the stakeholders and the UPA or the opposition to deal with this new situation, which is basically taking us back to the beginning. The exercise on discussing the agenda on the root causes and others are things that we have done in April, May last year. And we proceeded with the negotiations and reached a compromise in what are known today as the 8 protocols of the Tumaini consensus. So essentially, the government delegation, or the new government delegation, has reneged from all the commitments and the agreements we have reached during last year, and they are taking us back to the beginning. So we are starting from scratch now. That is where the agenda of discussing root causes has come.
Okay.
To answer the question, why is South Sudan in conflict? And why is this conflict persisting? Why have we failed to implement all agreements that have been negotiated and signed with the aim to take the country to sustainable peace and democracy? Why has that failed? Why has the government failed to bring peace in the country?
That goes back to
that is basically taking us back to the beginning, and it is the government that is taking us back because they have disowned and they have refused and rejected the agreements we have negotiated with the same government. But we do not even know whether they are representing the same government or not.
But there's a question that even when you talk about the root causes of the conflict, you were there as Pagana Mum from the beginning. Many of you have been in the government, and the failure, you can also take, you can be also blamed for taking part in the failure of the root cause of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. All of you, most of you actually in the UPA. What would you say in that regard?
Actually, this is not true, because when we were negotiating the RCs, before our RCs, it was President Kiir and his government which came to be known as IT Gono, before RT Gono, refused and rejected to sign the RRCs, and signed the RRCs with 16 reservations. Among the reservations were refusing the issues that are at the root of the conflict in the country. This led to the negotiations of RRCs. And we were part of the negotiations of RRCs. But the way the government of Sudan compromised the peace agreement in pursuit of their own interest and reached certain deals, which we have also discussed here in our presentation, on why we as the opposition and non-signatories refused to sign the RRCs. We have discussed them.
It's 8:30.
There's a concern from the government of South Sudan about you changing your name from SOMA to UPA. Can you make that clarification? Why?
We, from the time we came here, we were invited as individual parties from the non-signatories and SOMA and from other organizations and arms group that sprang up after the RRCs. So they were not part of the RRCs discussion. And we started from the beginning with every party making its presentation in the opposition. And we realized in the opposition that actually much of our positions are similar, and we felt the need to unite ourselves. And that's a process that started right from the beginning, from May last year. We then united, and a clumsy name, SOMA and other oppositions. And we continued discussing. We united our negotiating delegations. We coordinated our efforts. And we consolidated this process of unity by agreeing to formally come together as one alliance of several parties, which are mentioned in the declaration of our of UPA to our people. And UPA, as an alliance of all the oppositions negotiating here in Tumaini, have resolved to consolidate their unity, and this is absolutely their right. Secondly, this has facilitated and made it easy for the process of negotiations, because now we are presenting one position to address all the issues of peace and conflict in our country. And for the government to claim that we have no right, this is absolutely nonsense. That is not their right. Opposition, whether before negotiations or during negotiations, have every right to unite themselves, to come together. And they themselves, as a government, they are a government, a coalition of so many parties. And they have united themselves. Even to come and face us, they decided to change the previous delegation, claiming that the previous delegation was not representative of their different parties. So if they can unite, and they are a government, and come with one position, this is good. They cannot deny us not to unite ourselves. Last time, they were so divided that some of them walked out from the talks. Yeah, but now they say that they are united and they have come back together. Why would they unite themselves and then see our unity as a problem?
But in the SOMA, there was nothing like commander-in-chief, chief of general staff, but UPA now came with this. It's like kind of a military wing. So what would you say in that?
Are you sure about that?
That's what people think.
There have been so many commander-in-chiefs.
Okay. So it's now united.
And so many chief of staffs. Every army has its own commander-in-chief, independent, and every force has its own chief of staff. What we have done is actually to facilitate the process of transition to peace. We have united all the opposition parties, and we have begun the process of uniting all the forces of the opposition into one unified force.
Okay.
And this is a process that is ongoing.
Okay.
And this will help the process of integration of forces.
All right. All right.
And instead of having 10 different armies, you now will have one unified army.
All right. Now,
So that claim is totally false, and this is a lie to outwit the people, but our people are much more smarter than such a cheap.
Right, right. Before we cross back to our main studio and pick a few calls from our listeners in Juba there with my colleague Alhadi Hawari, I want you briefly, General Pagan, to talk about today, because on Friday we had a brief statement from Ambassador Muhammad Ali Gwe, who's the Deputy Chief Mediator, talking about today you are going to have a kind of munaqashat junubin among themselves, especially the government and the opposition. Are going to co-chair the negotiation on the continuation of the root causes. So how did you guys reach to that consensus?
It is actually a proposal by the mediation. The mediation employ various modalities of negotiations, and the parties cooperate with the mediation. So they came with that. They started first by presentations of positions and papers, which they did not allow last time in the last sessions. This time around, they gave the government the opportunity to make their presentation on a paper that they've been working on for the last 3 months, basically to oppose the Tumaini consensus. And that led to the opposition or the UPA presenting, and then we agreed on the agenda. The stakeholders made a presentation on the root causes. The UPA made a presentation on the root causes. And the government was supposed to make also a presentation on the root causes. Then the mediation changed the modality, maybe to make it easier for the government to be able to open up and discuss the fact that the root causes of the conflict in South Sudan are not addressed. And so we are looking forward to listen to them, regardless of the modality, whether we are alone or in the presence or the leadership of the mediation.
But don't you
that
think
is irrelevant.
Right? Don't you think it's something positive in terms of creating confidence building and having being brought more closer together as two different teams to negotiate for lasting peace in the country?
It may help. It may help, particularly with this government delegation, which has destroyed all the trust and confidence we have built throughout the year by them rejecting all what we have negotiated and agreed with the government in last year. So, as we said, we are going to start from the beginning. Maybe that is why, in recognition of this, the mediation are seeing that maybe we need to do another session of trust and confidence building among the delegation as South Sudanese for them to talk to them. This is an exercise we have done way back in May last year.
So you think this may help of bring you co-chairing the...
This is taking us back to the beginning.
But it may help, you said.
Yeah, it may help. Let us see.
Are you hopeful that it will help?
I am not.
All right.
I am not hopeful because I don't trust this government delegation.
All right. Alhadi Hawari, let's go back to you there in our main studio in Juba. بنذكر المستمعين البث المباشر من العاصمة الكينية. أنا والزميل بتاعي لو نيلسون، والضيف بتاعنا في الاستوديو هو حيد بتاعت اليو بي اي أو المعارضة، وده طبعا باغان أموم هنا معنا في الاستوديو الليلة. نرجع الميكروفون لك عشان نقدر نرفع بعض من الأسئلة وكومنتس على فيسبوك بيج. الحادي حواري لك الميكروفون.
نعم. شكرا كثير إيمان الجزف كيلو. وبرضه شكرا الضيف حقنا اللي في استديو معك هناك جنرال باغانا موموكيج. في عدد من الرسائل وفي عدد من الأسئلة قبل ما نمشي نرفع التليفونات، لكن أنا كنت عايز بعد ما نرفع التليفون نرجع لكم. يعني باغانا ممكن يدينا شرح بسيط شنو هو التشالنجز وشنو هو البروجرس اللي حصل في تومايني هو كواحد من القادة هناك. نعم. رسائل الجاني في من المستمعين في صباح الليلة هو في رسالة من واحد من المستمعين سبيت باب بيقول صباح الخير الصحفي الموهوب إيمان الجزف أكيلي وضيفه في استديوهات في نيروبي هونرال باغانا موم ناطق بس ما ناطق هو رئيس تحالف بتاعت الشعب الموحد. انتم مرحبا بكم على الحام مباشر. سؤالي كالاتي: كيف نحل جذور المشكله من ناحيه نظركم، لانه معظم اتفاقيات لم تحسم صراعات؟ ثانيا، لماذا محادثه تومايني طال بدون تقدم محرز الشعب جنوب السودان في ترغب للتوقيع؟ ثالثا، هل تتوقع هذه الاتفاقيه تنفذ او يكون مصيره زي اتفاقيه بتاع السلام المنشط؟ ده هناك من فرانكو سيبيت باب. في رساله في سؤال برضه من تريبل اي اتم. He said, good morning, Alhadi, Hawari, Manu, Joseph, Akil, Nelson, General Pagana, Moom. What will people of South Sudan benefit from this agreement since the people did not benefit from 2018 agreement? This is one. Number two, resources go directly to the huge government and civil servants stayed without salaries. I'm watching live from Mayana Boone, Twitch County of Hawari State. Firi Salamin Achwil Gong Dimabior, Bigul Hope. I hope Honorable Pagana Moom is back to Juba. Pagan is too good in saying things. He's in his other colleagues cannot implement. When are they coming to Juba? This is from Achwil. There is also other questions here from Bol Mayan. In 2011, 2012, they were part and parcel of this government, which is still headed by President Salva Kiir Mayardit, and they didn't change anything, nor do something for development. Where did they get power to do what they are expected to do while the country is led by the same person? There is a message also from Joseph Gumadud. We are tired up by conflict in the country. We need peace. We hope there will be agreement between all parties in Tumaini Peace Initiative. I am watching live from Turalei County, Turalei of Twitch County, Warabi State. Mading Iyaka Madiwa. My question to CDE Pagan is, what if Tumaini Peace Initiative wouldn't implement it like some of the agenda in our access? A peace between React and other groups. What will be solution again to recover the nation for these challenges? Yes. There is a message here. I have seen Pagana Moom don't want too many peace talks to come to an end. Why did the government delegates wasting their times and successful peace talks in Nairobi? This from Bol Ding Ding. A question there. There's another question from Barnaba Bol. My question is, who sponsored this huge number of South Sudanese politicians in Nairobi for almost 2 years now? There's something wrong with our politicians. They only know to value money, not what they can do for their country. Yes, let us pick some calls from some of the listeners here, also those who are calling. Okay, there is a message here from Nuero MG Gatamai Chol. He said all parties are engaging in what is called Tumaini to negotiate the issue that face South Sudan. What is this tension between a revitalized peace agreement and a Tumaini? Does Tumaini bring peace in South Sudan? Yes. This is the last question from some of the listeners who are, some of the viewers who are listening to us and watching us live on Facebook. Hello, Radio. Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Alhadi.
Yes, your name and your question direct to Honorable Pagana Mumde.
You are connected with James Dwar.
Yes, James Dwar, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. My question to Honorable Pagana Mom is, in you see the obstacle of the Timahini that you don't have hope on maybe expectation of hope in the country. why are you wasting your time if you don't have hope with your reason statement at the conclusion of this talk that you have just mentioned in our radio there?
Yes.
The second question is, how should we really make sure that Mahini and RRCs are in one position? Because now there is a major content point of government blaming RRCs and you with Mahini. How should you bring them to one point so that we have one piece? How should we also make it to be implemented, since the implementation is the main problem in this country?
Yes. Thank you. That was James Duer. Hello, Radio.
Hello, Alhadi Hawari.
صباح الخير.
معك سليمان الهيتراوة.
سؤالك مباشر سليمان، عن الزمن ما معنا.
استوديو هناك بغنمهم. اوكي بغنمهم، هل انتم مشيتوا في تمايني انيشيتيف عشان تجيبوا سلام لجنوب السودان عشان يكون في استقرار تام ولا لا؟ وكان انتم مشيتوا هناك عشان تجيبوا سلام للجنوبين، معلوم انتم مصرين بمواقف حقكم، حكومه واقف بمواقف حقه ومعارضه واقف بمواقف حقه، ما في اي تنازلات من قبل بتاعكم. واحد اثنين، انت دائما بقول تمايني initiative is the lasting peace for the people of South Sudan. How come Tumaini initiative will be the lasting peace to the people of South Sudan, whereby we still have many opposition outside the country? For instance, like Thomas Cirillo, Peter Ajawin, and so on. This is my question to you. Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا لك. نعم اكيد انا حاجه لك، لكن السؤال بتاع سليمان ذكرني حاجه. في جروب اللي هم طلعوا من مجموعه بتاعت كيد جوانغ، هم قالوا هم مجموعه من كيد جوانغ دارين ينضموا العمليه بتاع السلام في تومايني، لكن هم قالوا قاعدين يواجهوا عقبات عشان ما ينضموا، لانه هم عندهم احساس انه السيطره الكامله بتاع المعارضه كله تحت اداره بتاع باغانا. وانا كنت داير جنرال باغانا هم يجاوب على السؤال ده. سؤال اخير ونرجع الميكروفون لكمان الجيزه فكيله هناك.
alright. شكرا جزيلا الزميل الحادي حواري. عدد من الكومنتس في فيسبوك واسئله وكمان برضو بعد من الاتصال. ندي الميكروفون لجنرال باغانا موم لانه الزمن ما لسه علينا، عندنا حوالي 14 دقيقه. ممكن you can respond holistically or generally to the questions بعربي وجزء بانجليزي. نعم تفضل.
انا هتكلم عن السؤال الاول اللي ساله حواري ودراو من المستمعين عن ال challenges and progress of the Tumaini.
Yes.
Our main challenge that delay the signing of the peace agreement is that the government has changed its position. It has reneged from what we have negotiated and agreed on, the 8 protocols. And that is the main challenge
of Tumaini.
There's a lot of progress that we have made in the 8 protocols, and I would like to correct the impression from many listeners saying that the Tumaini 8 protocols are our position. This is not our position. This is an agreed compromise by all the parties, the government, the opposition, and the stakeholders. And we prepared ourselves. Also, we have agreed with the government that we were going to sign the Tumaini consensus on the 16th of September last year. The government did not show up. They failed to show up. The challenge. That's where it started. Now the government has walked out from these negotiated agreements and protocols, which would have benefited the people of South Sudan. In these 8 protocols, we have strengthened mechanisms to ensure that the peace agreement is implemented. We have created provisions and agreed with the government and the stakeholders to create internal guarantees for implementation as well as external guarantees. We have agreed on the process of mobilizing our people to support and own the Tumaini consensus, different from the RRCs or the RCs before it, where the ownership of the agreement was not for our people was not achieved. That were things that we have agreed on, and the government unfortunately came back to reject all that they have agreed to.
Progress.
And this undermined the progress we have made. And now they have taken us back to the scratch.
All right, let's go to the next question.
Now, the question on the bloated government, the Artigono insist on a bloated, dysfunctional government, and they rejected our proposal for South Sudan to have a lean government. And as a compromise, we said, okay, fine, let us have a bloated government as they wanted. And
but it will not. You're yet to discuss the responsibility sharing. How did you go to the part of discussing the government? Which kind of government you should have?
With the previous delegation of the government, we have agreed on that.
Okay.
Now they are, of course, going back to the beginning. They have thrown out all these agreements, and they are coming now again with the idea of the bloated government, which has failed to carry out its main functions, neither bringing security or protecting life of the citizen, as you can see in Aru Junction, and not able to pay the salaries of those who are working with the government and the security forces in the country. And these are the issues. It is true that our people are tired
yes, that's of
the conflict. But what is delaying us to sign the Tumaini consensus? It is the government. The government came back to reject what has been agreed, forcing us to start from the beginning. This is really the problem.
But you've already agreed on the agenda. So
we have agreed on the agenda to begin discussing the things that we have discussed and agreed on again.
What is remaining now is the continuation of the root causes of the conflict, which is today, and then you will go to the relationship between. You think the relationship between Tumaini and RRC is like reopening the protocols again?
Not only opening the protocol. In the presentation of the government, they are saying the entire Tumaini is to be deleted because they are rejecting them.
Actually saying he hopes that you go to Juba. One of the comments on Facebook.
Of course, that is our aim, to go to Juba, to go to South Sudan, to contribute to building peace in the country. But how do we go to South Sudan if you have a government that is reneging on the agreement reached with us?
Ball is saying on our Facebook, you were a part of the government. All of you here, you were a part of the government. So what difference will you bring this time around?
I was in the government more than a decade ago. I have been outside this government since then. The situation has deteriorated and the conflict continued. That tells you there is something wrong in the last 11 years that is continuing. That is what we need to solve.
Yes. Continue.
Now, there was a question that why are we wasting our time if the government is not serious to bring peace? Of course, we have to be patient. We have to. You can see how patient we are to start from the beginning again. You can see how patient we are for them to throw out all what we have discussed and negotiated in the last whole year, since April last year, and we go to begin from the beginning again. This is the government.
Madin was talking about the implementation of Tumaini. I mean, revitalized peace agreement implementation has been slow, 6 years down the line. How will you ensure that the Tumaini will really be implemented in letter and spirit if it's signed?
With the previous government delegation, we have discussed and agreed to strengthen the mechanism of implementation, to create a very strong internal grantor and a leadership that is focused on ensuring that the agreement is implemented with a mechanism known as NLC, which they are now rejecting. They want to isolate the presidency, not to be involved on how to bring peace in the country and to ensure implementation. And they want to create a body which they have used to actually obstruct the implementation, the so-called high-level inter-party dialogue committee, which the only function it has done from the time it was established just before the extension, the first extension, has been only to discuss how the agreement has not been implemented and how they should go for extension. That is a body only to do extensions, not to implement. It disappears at the time of implementation, and it only comes at the end to force the parties to agree to extension. Every time.
Yes, there's a question, Pagan, here. Just right now here on our Facebook. Let me read it before we can continue. I have a few minutes. Someone is saying, if you don't trust this government delegation, why are you negotiating with them? If you don't trust them, that's what you said.
Actually, you negotiate with those whom you don't trust, especially when they have made sure to lose the little trust that was built by their actions. How do you trust them if they dishonor what they have negotiated and they work against it? Even they spend resources to work and campaign in the region against the Tumaini.
Barnaba is talking about funding of this process. Who is behind it? That's the question. Like, people back home think these are resources of South Sudan, I mean, in the Tumaini. So what would you say in that regard?
Well, first of all, President Kiir asked President William Ruto to mediate. He invited us and invited the government. We came and negotiated. The people of Kenya are the one funding this. Plus, of course, if they get support to the Tumaini from other development partners who are funding this. And they were actually paying for both the government and the opposition as well as the other stakeholders. Now, with this delegation, they have decided to come and stay in their own different hotel, pay for themselves, and make money, despite the fact that the government is not able to pay salaries of our people. They are the one spending the money of the people of South Sudan.
اوكي بكل اختصار سليمان بيتكلم ليه ما في تنازلات بيناتكم كاطراف من اجل السلام حقيقي؟ هل انتوا جيتوا في تمايني بنيه كويس انه دايرين سلام حقيقي في جنوب السودان؟
يا اخوي مانويل، من شهر 5 السنه اللي فات الاطراف كلها الثلاثه خشوا في مفاوضات وقدموا تنازلات كثيره واتفقوا على 8 بروتوكولات بتنازلاتهم المختلفه واتفقوا عليها لحد ما وصلنا نقطه بتاع توقيع على الاتفاقيه. الخلانا ما نوقع على الاتفاقيه اللي قدمنا فيها كل التنازلات ده. حتى الحكومه قدم تنازلات، المعارضه قدم تنازلات، اصحاب المصلحه الاخرين قدموا تنازلات. الطرف الوحيد التراجع من التنازلات اللي قدموها هو ده الطرف بتاع الحكومه. حقه تسأل السؤال ده لانه هم الحكومه جاء وقالوا ال8 بروتوكولات الحكومه اتفقت عليها هم ما ملتزمين بها وهم ضدها. السؤال ده حقه تسالوا به كل منيان.
اوف كورس نصر الحكومه، اوف كورس نصر الحكومه.
هم التراجع، هم الجو بموقف متشدد والرافض لكل التنازلات اللي قدمناها.
رسالتك اخير شنو للشعب بتاع جنوب السودان عشان يكون عندهم لسه ثقه وامل في مبادره بتاعت تماين قبل ما نختم في اقل من دقيقه؟
رسالتي الاخيره انه شعب جنوب السودان لازم يقوم بتصعيد النضال لتحقيق السلام في جنوب السودان، ولازم يرفع الضغوط على الحكومة الحالية، خاصة على الوفد بتاع الحكومة المتراجع من كل الاتفاقيات. ده الشيء الموجود. نحن قريبين من اتفاق. الآن عندنا 8 بروتوكولات متفقين عليها. ممكن نوقعها بكرة. لكن اللي عاجز شنو؟ ده الحكومة.
alright. شكرا جزيلا جنرال باغانا موم، هيد بتاعت UPA والاوبوزيشن جروب في مبادره بتاعت تماين الحادي حواري. ده كله ما عندنا الليله في صباح اليوم، وبنرجع لك الميكروفون انا والزميل بتاعي لو نيلسون. Thank you very much for joining us on the Dawn today.
You're most welcome.
نعم شكرا كثير ايمان الجزء فاكيلو ونسى لكم برضه ضيفنا اللي هو دائما بيكون معنا في استديوهات عشان ننور الشعب في جنوب السودان، هونربل باغانا موم، نيابه عن زملائي تشارلز ووتي أوان موسى. أنا كنت معكم الهادي حواري، حتسمع الأخبار بالعربي مع أوباجيك الشغال. كونوا معنا.
مباشر من جوبا على الهواء وعلى الإنترنت.
ده آي راديو، عينك على جنوب السودان.